Hi everybody, thank you for joining today. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk to you and deliver this webinar. Apologies for the t-shirt today. It's very, very warm here as everywhere else, but I don't know, everyone could be in their pajamas or fancy dress or something, so I'm not too worried about it because I can't see you. So I'm really pleased today to be talking about excellence in employability practice. I'm going to be talking about a number of things around what the expectation for the sector is, what some of the solutions are, what the IEP and a number of other people have been doing to try and address some of those issues around learning, engagement, and the ability to prove good practice. So I'm Scott Parkin. I'm the Executive Chairman of the Institute of Employability Professionals, and we've been around working very hard to extend and develop employability practice for about 6 years now. We work, as my presentation will say, with a number of partners, and hopefully today you can get a good understanding about what our strategic and our operational priorities are and why we are so committed to enabling everyone to understand what best practice looks like in employability delivery. So over to the presentation now. You don't need to look at me anymore, which is always useful.
That's great. We can start seeing Scott.
Okay. Can you see my presentation now?
Yeah, perfect. I can see you and your presentation.
Fantastic. Great. Okay. So our vision is just really, really simple. We are there to support those that support others, who support others to gain work, progress in work, and retain work. And that for us is really important. And we believe that's all encompassing with people who are supporting people towards greater independence. We all know, whilst it's challenging and difficult for some people, we all know that the best indicator of genuine independence is being able to work, to earn a living, to look after your family, and for me that's incredibly important. We work with a number of organisations. I won't go through the list here, but since we've formed our strategic partnership with Give Us a Chance Consortium, we have brought on board a number more housing associations, including Yarlington, Orbit, and Clarion Futures, to name just a few. So we are working very hard across a number of sectoral spaces with people who are delivering excellent services to enable people to progress and develop independence. We are a membership organisation, so in essence we look after those individuals. We're not a lobbying organisation, we're not really a trade-based organisation. We do care genuinely about the individual and the practice in which they are doing. Here are a good visualization of the organisations that we either engage with as a corporate affiliate partner or as a strategic partner. In a sense, Give Us a Chance Consortium is one of those. And we work very hard to progress the agenda around best practice, around employability practice. Last night we were delivering a networking event session with Luton Council. In the room were individuals from Job Centre Plus, from local delivery partners, for instance, Shaw Trust and Princess Trust, but also housing officers from the council and other individuals working on supporting refugees and asylum seekers and other people who were unemployed and wanting work and career support. And, that was really great. Our partners from Peninsula came down and did a session around career development, motivational interviewing, and feedback was really good. And so our job is really to get that message out there, get that learning out there, and enable people to grow and develop. This is how we do it. We empower individuals to genuinely believe in themselves and believe that they are specialised deliverers of specialist services. They are genuine practitioners. We champion employability as a profession that is good and one that people should want to be engaged in. We make sure that employers recognise the contribution that those staff members are making to not only the employer's delivery, but also the wider social and economic impact of what they do every single day. And we try and create a network of opportunities, so we are basically enabling people to get together, share best practice, do all the great stuff, talk about what they do, but also formulate partnerships and work really hard together to deliver better services for customers. Now, for about 2 years now, and Lindsay's very aware of this, we've been talking about what we think the future advisor would look like. And that isn't to say that people working in the space don't already have these skills and these abilities. It's just that not everyone does. And we decided that we would put something out there that would state what we believe would be required. And the irony is, I suppose now, 2 years later, in all spaces, people delivering employability or employment support or careers-based support were called advisors. And actually, that's not so much the case anymore. There are a multitude of different kind of titles. I met service managers the other day who were delivering locality-based provision, generating partnerships, stakeholder partnerships and relationships, but were service managers because they were managing a caseload rather than a number of people in an employment function. So, you know, in essence, the ground is moving, the sector is moving, and everybody within that wider sector is moving forward. But we always said, and what we think, what we've said people need to be hasn't changed. Maybe the titles have changed. So we said they really need to be highly skilled. We need to finally prove that people are working to really, really high skill levels within a sector environment that is genuinely needed by the customer base. And that if a customer goes to organisation A and organisation C, then the level of service is the same. They can guarantee that they're going to be able to receive a very, very high quality service. They have to be customer focused. I mean, we all work in a customer based sector. It's really, really important. But more than that, for a few years, particularly in employment support sector, a lot of service provision has been driven by targets, by the need to achieve a particular outcome. And that's, you know, don't get me wrong, you know, there is nothing wrong with targets and there's nothing wrong with achieving particular outcomes. But I think the shift in focus has been now to be much more holistic, much more customer focused, much more specifically around the individual. And that's come, I think, because for want of a better term, and I know it's a terrible term to use, but generically unemployed individuals, those who are able to find work relatively easily, but are not, that market or that group of people has diminished somewhat over the last few years with the increase in the number of people in employment. And so now we're supporting, very much like you are within the housing association environment, we're supporting people who are quite far from the job market, from work, and supporting people who have a multitude of challenges that they are facing, whether they be personal or whether they be family or whether they be societal or whether they be geographical or whatever. You know, there are a number of different issues there. And the sector as a whole has had to identify what it needs to do to bring provision in line with servicing and supporting those individuals. They have to be resourceful, they have to be integrated, they have to be able to manage stakeholders, they have to be able to manage partnerships. Gone are the days of somebody sat in an office somewhere waiting for somebody to turn up. Even that office base is changing. They are hubs, they are cafes, they are resource centres, some of which I've seen very recently are bringing in knitting activity, Tai Chi, music production, you know, some really interesting, innovative things. And I'm sure, you know, the people on the call at the moment would have many other innovative ideas for service delivery that really, really work. And I'd be really pleased to hear of your examples, your case studies and your stories on how that's working for you. They need to be a leader of those systems. They need to build trust really, really quickly with a customer as an advisor. We know that, please forgive me a second. Sorry, we seem to have a great deal of police activity where I live, which is...
Have they finally found you?
Yeah, they've come for me, I'm afraid. Yeah, I live in a sleepy town. It's suddenly not become sleepy. Everyone's cutting the and the police are coming. But anyway, I'll move on. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem.
They within those systems, they need to be connected. They need to be able to leverage other support and delivery that is available in the space, and really start to create multi-agency teams in its purest sense. These are people working together for the greater good, which is working together for that customer. Okay, what I wanted to do was kind of give you an idea about what our website, we've just rebranded, we've just created a new website with social link feeds and stuff like that. So I thought before I go on to say what some of the solutions are, this is kind of the portal to some of those solutions. And we're really excited about what it provides for our membership and the wider community. But it also enables people to interact together. So if I give you a quick tour around, and hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Lindsay can shout if you can't.
Yeah, I'll come back and let you know, Scott, we can see.
So we have a knowledge bank. It's a growing database, and you'll see when I give you a show around in a moment. We have 10 things guides written by specialist partners. So for instance, the 10 things guide to sight loss is written by the RNIB. It's obvious, I know, but it kind of, that's who needs to write these things. And the 10 things guides are not going to make specialists overnight of people, but they just enable people to remove any fear, any challenges that people have, and that they can start from a human being perspective, as it were. I know that sounds a strange thing to say, but there's nothing worse than an advisor meeting somebody for the first time and then stumbling over themselves for an hour, trying to think how I should communicate. And actually what they should be doing is just communicating normally in everyday fashion with an individual, taking into account their needs. But if they don't know their needs, then it becomes awkward and strange. And so what we're trying to do is to enable people to learn from that. There's one on stammering, which I think point 4 on the stammering one says you shouldn't complete people's sentences. I know it sounds absolutely obvious, but we all work in a caring profession. We all want people to advance and to be supported to advance. And the natural reaction from a caring human being is to try and help somebody. Well, clearly it doesn't help. So, you know, we put those things out there and help people to do that. We also have an induction guide, which enables smaller organisations or those organisations not so used to the employability sector to go through a number of different activities to achieve what we consider to be a sector-wide industry-based induction, which has been written by organisations within the space. The great thing about the website is you can, it's a virtual learning platform. You can take learning when it's required. You can track your own CPD. You get free access to those induction packs, I said, workplace progression, and there's the opportunity to improve the skills and knowledge of your workforce. And we do have things like bursaries and that for members where people can apply to actually go to conferences and things for free. If you look at the Learning Work Institute conference this year, for a day, that probably would save you about £400 as a person, and as a frontline employee, potentially being, you know, earning anything between £20,000 and £30,000, whatever they're doing as a function. £400 is an awful lot of money. So we provide those bursaries for people. The great thing about the Learning at the IEP is it's accessible. It's for people when they need it. And when I go on to in a moment and show you some things, you can actually access it on an app. So you could access what you needed to support a customer in 2 or 3 minutes while you're making coffee. This is not PhD level learning. This, or, you know, it may well be in the future, but it's not at the moment. This is just to make people understand what the basics are and understand what needs to happen and get a workforce across the whole that's operating to the right level. A bit more information about the induction packs there. It confirms the holders gain the relevant knowledge. It's an effective tool for large and small employers alike and their supply chains. Useful for supply chains and suppliers, because often organisations forget about, well, don't forget, but don't have the resources to impact the learning of their supply chains as much as they would like, meaning that delivery is not standardised. And in some ways, that's, you know, non-standardized delivery is why you have suppliers doing different things for you. But actually, what you need to be clear on, and a lot of local authority provision is looking at this now with its supply chains, particularly with its third sector, charitable sector organisations, making sure that knowledge and understanding skills are there, so they can guarantee the practice, I think is really important. And some information there around the induction act. So really simple stuff around data protection, loan working, safeguarding, all of these things that you will have to do as statutory elements. We have an interactive jobs board, so individuals can upload their CV, and I'll show you this in a moment. They can search for such jobs, and then new vacancies every week. And clearly, as an employer, you can advertise your jobs on there and get access to a marketplace that is only specifically around employment, advice, careers, coaching, that kind of element, which is a really useful commodity. And you'll see in a moment the new clean design. Well, you won't see the new clean design because you may not know the old design, so whether you see the difference, but we're really pleased and proud about what we've been able to achieve for our membership, and hopefully it works a great deal better. The social links are really good. The knowledge bank layout is happening as we speak, and there's a really good section around getting involved and making sure that the networks are engaging with each other. So, over to a really quick, and I've got to do some jiggery pokery here, so I'm going to
okay, we can see you changing over. That's fine, Scott.
You see that screen there?
I can see your PowerPoint at the moment.
Okay. Oh, yes, of course. Sorry. I apologise.
That's okay.
Clearly.
This will be interesting to see if you can switch screens. Okay, you're on full screen mode now. So I can't see your PowerPoint at the moment.
No, that's really good.
We can see you.
And you should now see the
okay, your screen sharing. Ah, there we go.
It's
well
simple when you know how.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, so this is the RUP website, and just a really quick functional kind of some really, really interesting stuff about joining, about professional development there, and I'll come on to more information in a moment and what's going on. At the moment, you can see I'm logged in here as a member. There would be a login thing here, but I'll leave it logged in because there's some really interesting stuff there. This is access to the knowledge bank I was talking about, all those hundreds of articles and pieces of information that really enable people's learning. Like any other website, we've got tweets and we've got latest news and the calendar and things that are happening, and then ways of getting involved. Individual membership, we're an individual membership organisation. We do rely on corporate partners to help us do what we do. That's both financially and through access to people, and strategic partnerships like the one we have with Give Us a Chance Consortium, and that's how people can engage there. And really important as a member, this is how you can get involved. Join a network, send us your news, share with us what works, or ask an expert. We have 60 fellows. We have a number of people who are considered experts in their field, and we get an answer to your questions, really, really importantly. And just really quickly on the bottom, you can see a number of our partners there. I won't labour that point, but there are around about 50, 60 now corporate partners and strategic partners who help us do the work we do. And you'll see some of those that you recognise, I expect. So if I just go really quickly without making anyone dizzy to the top. Along the top now, I don't want to labour this because there's more important things to do than this. We have all the drop downs and things that you can access. So I just want to go into the knowledge bank and show you a 10 things guide. I've talked about the starting one, and these are all the ones that are available at the moment. We commission loads more, and these are not to make you a specialist. These are to make people not frightened of the challenge with an individual.
Can you click on one just to show us a sample?
I'm absolutely going to do that now. Let's do motivational interviewing, because that took place in Luton last night. So that's quite relevant. And
there's lots of them already.
There is, and we're commissioning more and more and more. And so they start with an introduction. They have some more information, and a number of others, and I'll show you another one in a minute, have some scientific data. So 30% of blah, 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 you know, and give you some really good background and information. And they're the top 10 tips around engaging and motivating customers. So if I go back to another one here, let me use this one. This is quite good, the Asperger's one. This was written by Genius Within. We all know Genius Within. I'm really, really dedicated, interesting organisation, really dynamic, really helping support the agenda. Thank goodness, because I don't mind sharing, my son has Asperger's. So for me, this is a really great organisation. So an introduction, some statistics. So 1 in 100 people have Asperger's, which I don't know whether anyone's surprised about that. And then 10 things that employability professionals need to be aware of when supporting people with Asperger's. And ask what we can do in the process. Colour code areas, avoid flickering and direct lighting. I mean, some of these, if you have any understanding of the condition, are obvious, but it's good to get things down on paper. If I just show you really quickly.
That's new on me, I have to say, Scott. I didn't think colour coding would affect anything. That's interesting.
As I say, you know, this is genuinely about, sorry.
Who did your mental health one?
That's a very mind, I believe.
Okay. Oh, you said, sorry. Yeah.
So I just need to reload this page. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. That's all right. We can always edit these bits out. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I can't seem to get the induction pack guys up at the moment, which is a real shame. But you know, they are there genuinely, and this might be some of the teething problems. We only went live with this brand new website a couple of weeks ago, so some of the things are there. If I go through to the IEP Knowledge Bank in its entirety.
Okay. Sorry, I keep jumping in, Scott, with questions. I hope you don't mind.
I don't mind. I'm really, really pleased for you to do that.
Good. Is this all free on your website? Free to
all of this is for members or corporate. So
you must be a member. Okay.
Yeah, we have 2 different levels of membership. We have corporate membership, where an organisation pays to gain access to the resources, and we have individual membership, where individuals pay. Now, the only change within that is we also have members who pay for individuals within their organisation to be members also. So there's a very large organisation at the moment called Shaw Trust, who pay to be a corporate member, so they have all access to all our corporate services, but they also pay for every single member of their workforce, which is 3,500 people.
Crikey.
So, you know, it's very, very exciting in terms of the engagement possibilities there. But you can see here, this is going to change. The Knowledge Bank will change into buttons like this. So it's easy to search. At the moment, just a very, very long list of about 250, 300 different articles, although it's still searchable and very easy. So in the next week or so, it will be very much more like this.
Right.
And I just want to show you now the big change with the website. It's a social link feed. Please forgive me if there's anything on here. Sorry, I've gone ahead too quickly. As a member, sorry if I'm making people dizzy.
No, it's okay.
As a member, you can also track your CPD. There you go. And it's very, very easy to do. You can print an annual certificate. You can also print your membership certificate. And you can also engage with the IPD CPD program, which has the learning and certificates and tests and proof that you know the knowledge. So it's really exciting. You can engage with that. Sorry. So I'll go to the social link feed now. And this is where we have updates. And this is a bit more like LinkedIn. So this is about creating a network.
Yeah.
The really, really good thing about this, there's a horrible picture here of me with some colleagues from a company called Iconi. So you can do as many things as you want to do. And it's very much like LinkedIn. It's very intuitive. You can do all of these things while you're making a cup of coffee or before you start work in the morning. And that's a very real different game changer. And for everybody on the call, if you could see that, that's my iPhone, and that's mirrored by an app on the iPhone. Can people see that?
Yeah, got it. Okay, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, instantly accessible when you're out and about and you're doing things. And to be honest, you know, technology is catching up, but if you're working on outreach and you're working remotely, there's no longer feeling lonely.
Yeah.
You've got friends
Yeah.
you can access. So I'm really excited about that. I might post a post here, engaged with a webinar for jobs.
Jobs, not gobs.
I've got jobs.
Got it.
I just can't speak properly.
Yeah, you're there.
IP
info.
So,
nice.
There you go. So I can, and anybody who's now engaged with me on that network will see what I'm doing. Just really very quickly back to the website. So you can find what you need to learn. You can log your CPD and you can engage and prove your learning.
Yeah.
You can, the network, you can record what you're doing. You can engage with new people. And very lastly, you can either post or you can find work for yourself. And this is the last thing I'll show you on here. So there's the jobs board. All very smiley people, aren't they? We need to get some very real IEP people rather than stock photos. But you can see what we've got at the moment. There's loads more jobs available.
Yeah.
And if you, as an employer, want to post a job, you just click on post a job. You set up an account, and you basically list whatever you need. On every single one of these, there's always a back button to the home page. So I'm really pleased about that. So that's our website. I'm going back to new share, and I'm going back to my presentation, hopefully.
Okay. Well done, diving in and out of that. Oh yeah, we can see your webinar. Sorry, we can see your PowerPoint again.
Almost seamless. Okay. So
great.
So I'm going to move on now.
Thank you for that live tour of the website.
Yeah, and hopefully people got that okay.
Yeah, it's good. I have to say it's looking really good. I didn't realise how much is on there.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks, Lindsay. That's really good. Also, as a member of the IEP, you get a weekly newsletter which comes out every single Monday, even on Christmas. And lots and lots of news stories, lots of stuff. We even share some good information in there, and lots and lots of stuff you can get involved with, but lots of news articles and lots of learning. We are genuinely about getting people together and learning. That's it. It really does what it says on the tin. And here's some examples. Excuse me. Here are some examples. A little bit older, but we call it employability professional.
Okay.
Lots and lots of really accessible, easy stuff that you can read now, you can read later. We had one occasion where it didn't go out on a Monday, with lots and lots of emails going, where is it? So that's always good, isn't it? We know people are reading it. So we think that people should give this learning to their staff to improve outcomes. But by giving the learning, you will improve outcomes. We have data analysis which proves that. Organisations that have had control groups who have had IEP learning and learned towards the IEP qualifications, and their outcomes have been improved exponentially, to be honest, and I'm happy to share that with you, other than the fact that I can't share which organisation it is. We enable them to engage in CPD, switching people onto learning. We really want people to be actively engaged, and this profession has been poor in doing that over the years. We want to make sure that networks are increased, that everyone's talking very positively about employability and what that can do to people's life chances and their independence. And we also want to make sure that we're outcome focused at all time, and that your staff are, so learning, working, career progression, being outcome focused for themselves as practitioners, but also being outcome focused for their customers. And outcome focused doesn't always mean instantaneously a job, or even a job at all. It means, you know, with my own kind of socialist kind of philosophy, that people are either or both socially and economically active within their community. Because I think as human beings, we need that. And I don't want to get to, I'm certainly not getting philosophical, it's not really my bag. But I do generally, human beings need to be wanted to be able to provide for something. They need to be able to believe in the fact that they're making an impact, however small or large that impact is.
Yeah.
And we enable people to support people to. What did we do? So we've got all of those resources. We've got all these networks. We've got all these relationships that we built with the likes of Give Us a Chance Consortium and others. And we've got qualifications already. But we decided that the time was right, given the apprenticeship levy had landed as well, that we would develop some new apprenticeship trailblazer standards. And I suppose I've talked about some of the challenges for the advisor base, the network, and what they're going to have to be like if they're not already. I've talked about some of the resources and shown you some of the resources the IEP can provide. But is that good alone? And my answer would be no. The only way you get public and government recognition is if you can prove that people are qualified, and I will use that term a few times now, and for anybody who knows the Institute for Apprenticeships and the new apprenticeship standards, talking about qualifications and being qualified is wrong, but it's the language that we know as skills-based practitioners, so it's quite hard to get away from. But you're only recognised if you have a specific qualification, if you can prove your capability. And so we've developed this. Oh. So I've talked about why the standards were introduced, why we needed an employer group. We need an employer group because it's employer-led. It's a very interesting dynamic within this employer group because almost every single employer within that group has the potential to deliver this. They are skills-based or apprenticeship deliverers. So I suppose in essence, you could argue a little bit of knowledge is sometimes quite dangerous. In this aspect, it was really, really positive. And we were able to have some of those commercial stand-up conversations and be really honest with each other right from the get-go. So it didn't mean that we had conflicts further down the line. And that was really positive. We talked about why there's a revolution, basically why we needed to do this. Well, it was a commercial imperative. The levy had come along and people wanted to spend their levy on something other than customer service and business administration or higher level management training. All of those are valid, by the way, and I'm not saying they're not, but they wanted something that was very specific for their workforce. And there was also the moral imperative. You know, if you are delivering what you think are qualitative services to a customer base, how do you prove they are, and how do you prove that advisor or practitioner A is delivering equally as good a base level service, and base is the wrong word, but that kind of benchmark service as advisor or practitioner B. And I think that's phenomenally important, that we can guarantee service delivery across provision bases and in different geographical areas or in different organisations with different people. And then just really quickly, why the IEP? I hope I've kind of shown why in terms of our networks, our strategic partners and our access to the group. One of the really interesting things is that we hadn't operated so much in the careers sector before we've started to develop the Trailblazer and the apprenticeship. And now we are across it. The career sector decided not to develop level 3, 4, 5 as a Trailblazer routeway, and they're going to use our level 4 employability practitioner as a routeway to their level 6 careers practitioner. And what that means is that most careers-based companies now are going to use the standard to develop the learning, to prove the capability, and where they need to, as a commissioner's requirement in a contracting environment, have people qualified to level 4 in a specific careers advice and guidance qualification, they will map across and pay for the qualification. But all of that makes commercial sense because it's considerably less expensive than doing it the way that has been done in the past. So we developed an employability practitioner apprenticeship standard level 4. I'm not also allowed to say that it's a level 4. Apprenticeship standards these days don't have levels, but it's difficult for people to understand where the level sits if you don't give a practicing level, if that makes sense. So we still talk about qualifications and qualified, and we still talk about level 4, and we keep getting chastised constantly, but that's where we are. So our belief is we can get people together. Sorry, Lindsay.
Yeah, that's fine. Go on, Scott.
Okay. Our belief is we could get people together to do this. We wanted to make sure that we had something fit for purpose now in the future. And we've had one eye on what the future is going to bring.
Yeah.
You wanted to make sure that we could have something that Levy would fund. It's terrible to try and get qualifications, particularly of this robustness, off the ground if there's no or little funding. And one of the challenges we had with our original qualifications, the ERS and the ESS, both at level 3 and 4, is that apprenticeship funding was very small for those qualifications, and so take-up was reasonable, but nowhere near where it should be.
Yeah.
And we need a qualification that would be delivered within 24 months. Because at level 4, 24 months for a practicing practitioner who's only just started in that space is reasonable, and any time after the 12-month gateway window for an individual who's been doing this some time will be right and relevant.
Is that your entry level then? Level 4, is that the first qualification you can get?
It is our entry level standard. Yeah, to be honest, I'll talk about it in a minute, and if I don't, Lindsay, remind me, we were developing a level 3 and a level 4.
Yeah.
The great thing about that is the Institute for Apprenticeships has seen, and I've been talking about getting public and government recognition, the Institute for Apprenticeships has seen that employability practitioner is genuinely a standalone and specialist occupation.
Right.
Which for the first time it's really kind of outlined as that, which is really, really good.
Fabulous.
So we engaged people really, really early on in the process, got an employer group as wide and varied as possible. Currently the employer group sits at over 50 organisations, which is quite something for the IEP to manage, but it's really exciting, and we have a great wealth of experience and opportunity to develop something that is fit for purpose. We continued down the same vision and purpose, and we continue to share that. We created a movement as well as a group of people, I think is really important. We kept the momentum going with meetings every single month, and there was always something to do. That wasn't, meeting for the meeting's sake. It was absolutely because we needed to make decisions and move the thing forward. We used our corporate affiliate partners in the initial stage to get this thing going, and then we added a number of people who weren't to the proverbial party, and that worked really well. We made sure that we were engaged within those organisations and outside with learning development professionals who understood the agenda far more than I did at the time, and they were able to offer great advice around and support, and did work as well. I think went off in working parties and groups and did the work that was needed to provide that back to the wider group. Our lead employer with the capability and passion, an incredible individual called Claire Illingworth from CTEC, who has acted as the lead employer and has just done the most amazing job. I'm so proud of what we've been able to produce, and to the point that I'm talking now to through third parties to the SQC to try and get this embedded as a modern apprenticeship in Scotland, and to the Welsh Government about this potentially being part of a service offer around working Wales. So really, really exciting about what that can be.
Okay.
Bear with me a second. And not being afraid to take advice and change direction. We didn't change direction very much, but the IFA, our relationship manager at the IFA, Shona Hutton, was fantastic. And whilst some of the early exchanges were a bit frustrating because we thought we knew better, this is our sector, we know what we're talking about, it was about the language and about how we could get the thing over the line, and making sure that we didn't dilute any of that, we didn't lose focus, but that we put it in a language that the IFA could understand, the Institute for Apprenticeships could understand, and could then sanction the development of this, and then ultimately sanction the opportunity for this to go live. We engaged really early with other Trailblazer groups to learn what had gone well and what hadn't gone well for them. That was phenomenal in terms of our level of understanding and our appreciation about what needed to happen. Early understanding of the apprenticeship levy and what that would provide for this in terms of funding. We made sure that communication was often and good, and it was consistent, that this was something that should be revered and valued and genuinely engaged with, and that people who were coming to the meetings and weren't particularly interested in doing any of the work were still welcome, but not as welcome as those that were. And we made sure that everybody understood where their place was and how they needed to go about helping us. Loads of cooperation leading to co-design. Utilisation of other people's venues to hold meetings. Our network's large and varied, and having the IEP doing that was really useful. Making sure that we're engaged with wider sector. We consulted right at the end of the process, but also through the process with a massive amount of people across the piece, giving different levels of advice and engagement. And our Institute for Apprenticeships relationship manager was just incredibly helpful. Came from a training background, really useful in terms of understanding what training provision is like, whether that be ESFA funded or whether they DWP funded or ESF funded. And so, you know, having them engaged with that really enabled us to move this forward really quickly. We were delivering at no commercial cost. We haven't taken any money out of the IFA. We've done this absolutely as a absolute necessity to have, and everybody's engaged with that. We've been able to engage with student partners, including GUAC and trade bodies and awarding bodies, and making sure that there's wider exposure to increased relationships. So for the IEP, this has really enabled us to get, you know, rather than just 1 foot on the map, maybe 2 feet on the map, and being able to talk to people like yourselves and really kind of expand that dialogue and that engagement, and hopefully have an increasing influence around what we're trying to achieve, which is great practice and making sure that service delivery to customers is really good. What didn't go so well, we didn't have early governmental engagement. They were quite disengaged with the process, unfortunately. Now, that was not due to the fact they didn't like it, due to the fact that they didn't see the benefit of it, but most people within learning and development, within DWP particularly, were engaged in landing other apprenticeship trailblazers, customers, in large volume, and just didn't have the capacity to do that. There was a delay in engagement with the IFA relationship manager. For those people who don't know, the Institute for Apprenticeship is only a year old, a couple of weeks ago, and it's been spent the last year recruiting people all the way down from their chief exec all the way down to relationship managers, various different things. So there was a delay in that. We did have some challenges and issues with the differentiation of the standards, and in the end, we realised that we would not, the level 4 was confirmed first, we would not get the level 3 over the line unless it was incredibly different, and that meant that it wouldn't be real. So we decided to take both the commercial and the moral imperative and develop one standard. Now, just to highlight that, level 4 will be funded higher. If there's no level 3, you can add all the elements of level 4 into that, level 3 into the level 4, which means more to do, which is fantastic. It emulates the sector immediately by the level of learning and understanding, and organisations who deliver it get more money to be able to deliver it. So you'd be able to deliver in volume because the volume of people doing the level 4 isn't affected by a number of people doing the level 3 first. We were so precious about the route ways out of this. So what it could mean, could you go on to social work from this? Could you go on to level 6? Careers practitioner, could, you know, varying different things. We weren't so precious about entry routes. We started to think, well, why have we got level 3? We're thinking about people doing level 2 or 3 customer service or business admin or something else. Why are we so precious about that? And in the end, we had a big debate with the employer group and we decided on developing level 4, and it's genuinely the right decision. To the point that we will be putting our final EPA plan and our final standard to the route panel on the 15th of August, and we expect to be delivering by October. We don't expect to be delivering, the IEP is not delivering. Organisations will be expected to deliver from October. It's been agreed that the IEP will become the EQAO, which is the External Quality Assurance Organisation of the whole standard. So we will be holding and retaining the standards, and IEP membership runs through the standard. Which is really exciting also. We did have some frustration in the process, and which I've already spoke about in terms of time delays with relationship managers and what we thought was a misunderstanding with the IFA, but in essence, everything came out well. So we've learned a lot of lessons from this. The IEP, slightly flippantly the other day, was asked whether or not we would help and assist, because we can't share, we're not an employer on the employer group, whether we can help and assist with another apprenticeship trailblazer. And that's an interesting thing. So we've obviously done something right in terms of the IFA's belief in us to be able to get these things over the line. There are apprenticeship trailblazers which have been out there for 3 years, 5 years in development. We've been able to get this to the route panel by the time we do on the 15th of August in what's been about 14, 15 months. Which is quite an achievement. Now, no apprenticeship development should take even that long, but the standard has been a great deal longer than that. We've learned lessons in engaging with the IFA. we've widened the profile of the IEP, there's no doubt, and widened the profile of those organisations that have been involved in the development. We've increased the communication with partners, and we've used it as well as a default as a relationship building exercise. We've had appropriate challenging questioning. I think our relationships with those organisations we've developed the Trailblazer with have grown and are much more professional and much more purposeful. We've furthered wider intercompany working relationships. Learning and development professionals are seen now as the gatekeepers to the levy, and ultimately have been emulated as such. You know, they have budgets. I mean, learning and development professionals have budgets. I mean, you know, for the first time ever that are ring-fenced. I mean, that's really exciting. We're developing a careers map at the moment for the sector. We're continuing to professionalise the sector, and we're making sure that there is genuine career progression, and that people are coming into the sector and once in linking it to the nominal letters that you can have after your name as a member of the IEP. We're also going to work with the Trailblazer apprenticeship within the FE sector and enabling young people to get the skills they need to operate effectively in this sector and join us. The draft standards are nearly finished. They're going to be to the IFA very soon. And we have a number of organisations who want to act at this moment in time in a number of different settings. So those people delivering learning, those people testing learning under the endpoint assessment, those endpoint assessment organisations, and clearly the IEP, as I mentioned before, is the external quality assurance organisation, which is really interesting for us to do that. So we're submitting the level 4, as I said. We need to get final IFA sign-off. We need to agree exactly what the price banding is going to be. Our expectation for the level 4 is somewhere between £6,000 and £7,000, which is eminently deliverable over 24 months, although I will say there is an awful lot of learning in there. And we're expecting to go live in October. That might be relatively small, a few hundred apprentices, but to test some of the learning and stuff. But in essence, by the new year, we expect that few hundred to grow to a few thousand, and you know, the opportunity here is to land this properly and make sure that we can get people learning. So hopefully today I've been able to show you what we feel some of the challenges are going to be in the sector for practitioners. I've been able to show you around the IEP and what it does and why it does what it does, and hopefully you agree there's a need for that. And then I've been able to tell you what one of our latest developments is, and the thing we've been working so hard in for the last year or so around the Trailblazer apprenticeship at level 4 employability practitioner, which we think will be the kind of defining point. This will be the magic bullet. This will be the thing that genuinely enables people to gain the learning they need, test the learning they need, prove that they can do what they do, and then finally public and the government will really start to understand the level of impact that people have on individual customers and people that they serve by doing this kind of activity with them. Back over to you, Lindsay.
Scott, that's brilliant. Well done. You really have covered a lot, and I have to say, going through that, even though I'd seen your slides in advance, listening to you talk those through, the IEP really has come on this year in terms of its reach and what it's doing and its capability, and that sort of leads me to think lots of things really. One is probably an offline conversation, but I think we need to have a discussion again about how GUAC members can cost effectively access all those resources where our members have frontline staff delivering employability support, of which there are a number doing that, and we share best practice across our members. There's been some interesting webinars over the last year about what members are doing in this space, but it feels utterly foolish to try and reinvent the wheel when you've got so much guidance existing. So I think we need a conversation. I think, based on what you said, it would almost be individuals within organisations rather than corporate to corporate to corporate. But I think we need to revisit that again and find a way to share those resources and publicise them with our GUAC membership, because there's just so much good stuff there. So that's one to sort of take away, I suppose, and do something about.
I think on that point, Lindsay, I think organisations engage in different ways.
Yeah.
and they, you know, some organisations engage in a corporate way, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
Some engage, try and engage their individual staff members in membership, and some do both. And it really is whatever fits. Often the corporate way is the easiest way in, and then they build an understanding and a genuine want, and then they memberships for individuals, because the great thing about it's a drip feeding mechanism. It's getting people used to, you know, enabling CPD and stuff without the massive expense of, well, it's not massive expense, it's incredibly cheap as chips, but it's, you know, without the expense of doing that. And clearly, you know, if your workforce is only 10 people only, I mean, some amazing business, you know, 10 people, then the cost is very low to engage them in this wealth of learning. And let's not forget the networks, the opportunity to talk to other people, to build momentum for what you're doing, building partnerships. We all know in this day and age, we can't do everything ourselves. There's a time where large organizations pretty much do everything that they needed themselves. It's just not happening anymore. People have complex issues that you cannot be everything to everybody. And so in essence, what it enables you to do is build partnerships. I was at the networking event yesterday, and I saw visibly 4 or 5 people making engagements that will lead to working together in a commercial way. And you just say, but that's frontline practitioners and business development professionals doing that, not senior leaders. And I think often we've been so reliant on senior leaders doing everything for us as a sector. People formulating friendships and relationships that lead to things that really
Fab. Okay. And are Clarion a corporate member of the IEP?
They are. Clarion Futures are a corporate member of the IEP, yes.
Okay, good. The other thing that occurs to me, Clarion are supporting with PACT the foundation of a new online virtual Centre for Excellence in Community Investment.
Okay, that's interesting.
And everything that means. They're doing that over 3 years. PACT are leading it. There are 3 other HAs, including Clarion. 3 are GUAC members, 1 isn't, involved in this. And I think it would be worth a conversation with Drew, the chief exec at HACT, to see if and how all the information and knowledge that is forming and formed on the IEP website can be shared in some way, and what the arrangement might be there. So that occurred to me. And the last thing I had was really a question. You pretty much answered it. You said that the go live for level 4, the new apprenticeship standard, is probably October, and that there are a range of organisations kind of in the frame to deliver all or parts of it. Are you in a position yet to say, or is it a matter of people going through the register of approved training? Apprenticeship training organisations that's run by what was the SFA, what is it now, EFA, to understand which training providers are delivering that course when it's up and running, or delivering that apprenticeship standard.
Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting commodity. There's a breadth for everyone to be engaged in this, because if you're delivering the learning, you can't be the endpoint assessment organisation. If you're the endpoint assessment organisation, you can't be the EQA. So there's the whole stream of people who can be involved in this. I think predominantly in our sector, large-scale organisations, so if I take the likes of CTEC or Shore Trust, they will deliver internally themselves. They know what they're doing. It's not a training course per se, it's training materials and building portfolios to prove capability that is then tested at the endpoint assessment. So in essence, there'll be some group learning, there'll be some online learning, there'll be some one-to-one tuition, but it is incredibly eminently flexible, and I'm really excited about that. For smaller organisations, potentially there's an opportunity for consortium providers through GUAC to become either endpoint assessment organisations or deliver the learning across housing association, depending on the size and scale. You know, I have conceived ideas about how that works. All I want is for this to be accessible to as many people as possible. Let's create a revolution here. Let's make sure that everybody who's doing any level of employability practice, however small part of their role it is, you know, is doing it the right way. And ultimately, you know, whoever delivers it, as long as it's qualitative, I couldn't care. And it's about making sure that it's right, that it's viable, that it's cost effective, and that people are getting the right kind of learning, and that when you get to the endpoint assessment stage, an employer hasn't triggered the gateway for somebody at the wrong point, so they're going to fail, and the endpoint assessment is got to say is we decided to have a fail, pass, and a distinction level within level 4. So you mentioned about the level 3. Those people who are distinctions in the level 4 will be asked and coached with no guarantee to become a fellow of the IEP.
Okay, good. And that all sounds good, actually. That sounds fine. I think there'll be a number of staff in housing associations who are pretty much full-time employment advisors.
Yeah.
Who need to understand this emerging opportunity, and a number of HAs, as you'll know, pay the levy, and some are getting quite advanced about how they use that and channel it into existing and progressionary staff development, as well as new apprentices joining their businesses. So when this is live, I think the time will be very ripe to do some kind of development workshop, either face-to-face or virtually, and just try and get the slightly more proactive members. Clarion's one housing is another, just really who were around yesterday at a meeting I was at. But I think that there'd be appetite from URSA members and active housing associations in GUAD to understand how to sort of use the levy and engage in more apprenticeship starts in this area.
There's a genuine, there's the moral reason we need to do this for practice to be good, but there's the commercial imperative here. There's a real opportunity for everyone. The only reason it's over is we need to wait 6 weeks to the IFA to make their decision, or we'd probably be ready to go now.
Yeah.
It really is a simple. But the more the merrier, the more deliverers, the more opportunity there is. It needs to be commercially viable for those organisations, and the endpoint assessment is, it's not going to set the world alight unless you can do quite a lot of them. But as a consortium group, there is no reason why you can't, part of it be organisations that deliver together, and part of it be organisations that test that delivery, as long as it's not the same ones.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, there's real opportunity, and it's not something we spoke at length about, but there's real opportunity for your members and also for you as an organisation to start to build something that is reflective. Now, it may well be that can be built in line with the IEP as well. It might be something that we can do as some kind of joint venture, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. I've been concentrating on getting the thing over the line. It's incredibly qualitative, and the last thing I'll say for the people on the call and for the people that listen back to this is don't necessarily be put off by the title. I mean, be really excited about the title of the apprenticeship, employability practitioner. But if you look at the draft standards, and I'll get them back to you again, the latest ones, Lindsay.
Great.
Process recording, coaching, mentoring, advising, support. It's equally as accessible for somebody working in healthcare as it is somebody working in social care in that capacity. Yes, we talk about employability, but I would say that what you need to know as an employability advisor, and what you need to know as a human being, as a person on this planet, around employability, exactly what you need to know around life skills. They're exactly the same things. If you can tutor and support people to enhance their independence and progress their life and with the skills they need to be successful in life, then you can be an employability practitioner. Most of it anyway. There
you go. What a note to end on. Next up, you'll be running for mayor of somewhere.
I don't think so.
Derbyshire.
Yes.
Scott, brilliant.